This is VOA Africa. Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori, in for Esther the Ewart. It's Monday, May the 24th. Welcome to Africa 54. We continue to work remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but what hasn't changed is our commitment to bringing you the latest and most important news from the African continent and around the world. This is today's Africa 54. We begin in Central Africa, where thousands of people in the Democratic Republic of Congo fled their homes to escape lava flows from an erupting volcano near Goma. While most of the city was spared, those who returned to the outskirts of Goma Sunday found their homes destroyed. VOA's Arash Arabasadi has more.
Early Sunday, a group of men tried without success to redirect the flow of lava coming from Congo's Mount Nyiragongo. The government there announced an evacuation plan, but it came hours after the sky turned red and thousands had already fled. The Goma Volcanology Observatory had warned days earlier of increased seismic activity. By morning, evacuees began the long journey home to find what was left of their homes after Nyiragongo's first eruption in almost 2 decades. Area resident Masika Muguiko says the hardship continues.
We have suffered too much. We walked about 15 kilometers and now we have just walked back. When we arrived, our houses were burned or destroyed and everything was stolen.
Nearly 2 million people live within range of Nyiragongo in the city of Goma. Officials in neighboring Rwanda say more than 8,000 Congolese people fled across the border to escape the lava flows. Now, as they return to Congo, only uncertainty awaits.
Now I don't know where to go. I'm only walking in the street, and we are afraid because the fire is still visible in the lava.
Meanwhile, reports said Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi was cutting short a trip to Europe and returning home to help coordinate relief efforts. This was Mount Nyiragongo's third major eruption since 1977. The city of Goma, near the mountain's base, is eastern Congo's hub of trade and transport, humanitarian aid, and a base for a UN peacekeeping mission called MONUSCO. Local officials say only a handful of people died and blamed the deaths on accidents during evacuation. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
The U.S. government on Sunday said it was imposing wide-ranging restrictions on economic and security assistance to Ethiopia over the atrocities in Tigray. Along with that will be visa restrictions barring current or former Ethiopian or Eritrean government officials deemed responsible for the crisis. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the actions by the United States are to press for the resolution of the crisis. Thousands have been killed and hundreds of thousands more forced from their homes in the Tigray region since November. An Egyptian court on Sunday rejected a complaint by the Japanese owner of a container ship that blocked traffic in the Suez Canal for 6 days in March against the vessel's continued detention by canal authorities, according to a lawyer. The Ever Given, one of the world's largest container ships, became jammed across the canal in high winds on March the 23rd, halting traffic in both directions and disrupting global trade. The complaint was attached to a case at the Economic Court in Ismailia, in which the Suez Canal Authority sought $916 million in compensation from the Ever Given's owner, Shoei Kisen. Also on Sunday, the head of the Suez Canal Authority suggested in a TV interview that the canal could accept the reduced sum of $550 million, slightly lower than the $600 million he had mentioned earlier this month for a potential out-of-court settlement. Suez Canal Authority's chairman, Osama Rabi, said a $200 million deposit could be enough to secure the ship's release, with the rest payable separately. The International Criminal Court will hold a hearing on Monday at The Hague to confirm charges against alleged Darfur militia leader Ali Mohammed al-Abdurrahman, commonly known as Ali Kushaib. Al-Rahman, the first Sudanese suspect in ICC custody, faces charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The charges include his alleged responsibility for the rapes, destruction of property, and attacks and killing of civilians in 4 villages in West Darfur, 2003 and 2004. French Foreign Affairs Minister Eritrean confirmed on Sunday that a French journalist who disappeared last month in Mali's northern city of Gao had probably been taken hostage by Islamist militants in West Africa's arid Sahel region. Olivier Dubois this month appeared in a video appealing to authorities to do everything they can to free him from the Al-Qaeda North Africa holding him. French authorities have previously only confirmed Dubois' disappearance. The Ivory Coast resort town of Grand Bassam is known for its beaches and French colonial architecture. Recent flooding and the passage of time have taken a toll on the city's historic buildings. Now some people are determined to fix things, as Yassine Chio found in this report narrated by Caro Gunsberg.
The town of Grand Bassam, nestled by the Atlantic Ocean, is a veritable open-air museum. French colonists established it as their capital in 1893, erecting graceful buildings for government, commerce, and housing. Those colonial buildings, with verandas, colonnades, and gardens, hint at the port town's wealth early in the 20th century. Peter Teoro, a guide in Grand Bassam for over 20 years, knows the history inside and out. He points out a building named for Edouard Blackson, a logger who changed his name from Edouard Aka to make it sound more European and more appealing to European bankers.
This pretty building is Blackson House, marking part of the Ivory Coast commercial history during the colonial period. This was a stock exchange where everything was traded.
The colonial architecture and neighboring African fishing village led UNESCO to name Grand Bassam a World Heritage Site in 2012. The capital had moved from the town in 1896, and then shipping declined. Now, vegetation covers most of the colonial buildings. Many look close to collapse.
Rehabilitation is very important to our history. If we lose all our buildings, we no longer have part of Côte d'Ivoire history. And the people who no longer have history are people who are dead.
Some residents are renovating buildings themselves. One is Luc Rago, an architect who calls Grand Bassam the Ivorian Saint-Tropez, in reference to the famous French town on the Riviera.
We had to remove everything that fell. The arc existed, and here it was walled up. I wanted to open it up as a showroom. I have created a guest room to accommodate artists who will be exhibiting. I did everything in 2 months.
On the ground floor, Rago's business partner opened La Casse Bleue restaurant in early 2020, just before the pandemic. Herman N'Gassan said he developed his cooking skills in Grand Bassam.
I love this city for its history. I immediately liked this place, which was an old warehouse, and we decided to fix it up and make it something nice.
Rago and N'Gassan hope others will follow their example and give a second life to Grand Bassam's precious heritage. For Yassine Sio in Grand Bassam, Carol Gunsberg, VOA News.
A Western Sahara independence leader at the center of a diplomatic dispute between Morocco and Spain must answer legal charges in Spain before leaving the country. Spanish Foreign Minister Arantxa González-Glaya said Polisario Front leader Brahim Ghali faces a court summons in Spain in a war crimes case against him, although Spain's High Court has rejected a request by plaintiffs in the case to arrest him. Spain's foreign minister said last month that Ghali had arrived in Spain from Algeria for medical treatment. Spain's decision to host Ghali without telling Morocco has angered authorities in Rabat, which regards Western Sahara as part of Morocco and says Ghali is using travel documents provided by Algeria and a false name. It was a full weekend of play at the Basketball Africa League tournament in Kigali as teams battled for spots in this week's playoffs. Our Jackson Vunganyi has the action.
In Group C action, GS Petrolier jumped out to an early lead on solid shooting from power forward Abdella Hamdini, who led all scorers with 33 points. Filoviario's DeMarcus Holland guarded by 3 defenders for a layup attempt tipped in by Ivorian forward Adeji Baru. Holland got to the rim off a steal and a pass from Micah Bongo, converting for 2 of Holland's team-high 18 points. Hamdini hit consistently from beyond the 3-point line, during the first half, aided by strong play from Mohamed Tawuti, who hit this smooth hook and finished with 9 rebounds. Strong Ferroviario's passing found the open man with Alvaro Massa hitting from short range for 2. Holland pushed the ball up the floor again to an open Barrow, who had 17 points and 10 rebounds. It was Custodio Mochate feeding Holland on a fast break, extending Ferroviario's lead. GSP got to an easy 2 on a long pass to Hamdini, who led a split 2 defenders in the lane. But he was tired from carrying the load with little support from his teammates, much to the dismay of coach Mohamed Krideche. Ferroviario's balanced attack included strong play from Kabongo hitting from 3 and feeding Barrow with a no-look pass. It was too much for the 20-time Algerian champions as the Maputo Locomotives won by 13 and booked their tickets to the quarterfinals. Group A's unbeaten teams faced off with US Monastir leading early on. Strong play from Lebanese shooting guard Wael Arkaji. Power forward Brandon Costner hit for 3, but the Petros could not keep pace with the Tunisian club, and the ball fake drive assist from Rodani Salimani to Mekrem Ben Romdani, who also collected 10 rebounds. Arkaji showed his ball handling and got the bounce on his way to a game-high 28 points. Kenny Gassana led the Patriots with 22 points, including these 3 to cut the run-on deficit to single digits. Wilson Chobozo got the better of Omar Abada on this steal for an easy 2, with the Patriots' American coach Alan Major arguing his team to get back and play D. US Monastir kept its lead with Mo Abada from 3-point range and a soft jumper from Slimani. Prince Ibed delivered a highlight dunk, but the British run-on center was held to just 2 field goals. Arkaji created space in the paint all game, much to the delight of coach Munil Ben Sliman. He hit again from the top of the key and from 3 on a driving pass from Marcus Crawford, who added 21 points and 4 rebounds. It was all Arkaji down the stretch, shooting 10 for 11 from the field as the Tunisian club stayed unbeaten to win their group. Zamalek is one of the tournament favorites and look to stay unbeaten in Group C. Mustafa El Mekawi established an inside presence early on his way to 7 points. Senegal's Segrine Gay opened with a steal and a long-range 2. Mamadou Diop found big man Hassan Atia in the paint for 2 of his 11 points. And Alkali Ndoul scored falling down as the Senegalese club took an early lead. Ndoul found Gay for an open 3 with the team staying close throughout the first period. Sharp Zamalek passing set up Ahmed Abdelatif for 3, and the Egyptians began to pull away in the second, with Omar Hussein delivering to Moloku Diabate in the corner. AS Douane forward Mamadou Faye hit for 3 off a screen as the Senegalese club tried to battle back under coach Mamadou Gueye. Ndoul gave it up to Chris Cockley on the break for the bucket and the foul. But that is as close as the Senegalese came, with Zamalek extending their lead, and Anas Mahmoud dished to Mohab Abdelatif, who finished with 14 points. Mahmoud kept it to himself off a pass from Hussein, and Diabate found Chimelu Elonu cutting toward the basket for an alley hoop. It was all Zamalek as they closed out a 24-point win.
In other weekend action, Petro de la Luanda beat the Moroccan club AS Saleh. Cameroon's FAP topped AS Police of Mali, and Tunisia's US Monastir beat Kigali's hometown Patriots Basketball Club. You can hear all the action from this week's Basketball Africa League playoffs on this local VOA FM stations and at voanews.com. We are excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a call to pharmaceutical firms to help speed up global production of vaccines by sharing the technology. We'll be right back.
All this week on Africa 54, we are partnering with the BAL to bring you the best of African basketball. Don't miss it. Yeah.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Campaigners say that 8 executives and investors in companies making coronavirus vaccines have become billionaires in the last year, thanks to the patents on their inoculations. They're now calling for the pharmaceutical firms to share the technology so that global production of vaccines can be quickly increased as infections continue to surge in many poorer nations. And Ritual reports from London.
Coronavirus vaccines have transformed the fight against COVID-19, but they have also transformed the personal finances of several individuals involved in their development, according to the People's Vaccine Alliance, a group of non-profits campaigning for equitable global access to vaccines, which includes the charity Oxfam.
The pharmaceutical corporations behind some of the most famous COVID-19 vaccines, like the company Pfizer, for instance, or Moderna, they're making huge profits from the monopoly they have on these vaccines. And as a result, their investors and their CEOs are becoming billionaires for the first time ever.
They include the chief executive officers of US pharmaceutical firm Moderna and the German firm BioNTech, according to analysis by the People's Vaccine Alliance. The alliance claims 7 other executives or investors involved with Moderna and the Chinese firm CanSino Biologics have also become billionaires.
These COVID-19 vaccines were funded by public money, by taxpayers like you and I. So these are not the property of these companies, and they should not be used to deliver these enormous profits.
The patents on the vaccines mean the pharmaceutical firms can dictate the price and distribution of the drugs, says Lawson.
Because of these monopolies, we're ending up with an artificial scarcity, and it's quite enough space for these companies to make a decent return, not obscene profits, not creating billionaires, but also at the same time share their technology, share their intellectual property, and allow every competent vaccine manufacturer on Earth to be producing the vaccines we need.
In a statement, BioNTech said that it had already increased its production capacity up to 3 billion doses in 2021. The firm added that patents are not the limiting factor to produce the vaccine, which is, in its words, a complex process developed over more than a decade. Moderna did not respond to requests for comment by the time of publication. Poorer countries are facing a dramatic shortfall in the supply of vaccines. The United States this month declared its support for a move to suspend patents on coronavirus vaccines, first suggested by India and South Africa. The issue topped the agenda at a global health summit held by the G20 group of industrialized nations in Rome Friday. In a joint declaration, the G20 called for voluntary licensing and technology transfers, but stopped short of supporting a suspension of vaccine patents. The European Union pledged to give 100 million vaccine doses to poorer nations this year and build vaccine production hubs in Africa. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
With domestic vaccine needs largely fulfilled, the Biden administration is ramping up efforts to help vaccinate the world. How would the U.S. global pandemic response be different than the so-called vaccine diplomacy of China and Russia? White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
125 million Americans, that's 38% of the population, are now fully vaccinated. 138 million, 48% has had at least one shot. Children ages 12 to 15 are also getting vaccinated. So now the country is beginning to turn its focus on helping vaccinate the world.
We will not use our vaccines to secure favors from other countries.
Earlier this week, President Joe Biden announced an additional 20 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, a total of 80 million doses to be shared via COVAX, the UN mechanism for lower and middle-income countries to access vaccines. It's part of an early phase of a global strategy his administration has yet to outline. But they insist U.S. efforts will be different than the vaccine diplomacy of China and Russia. Both have provided tens of millions of doses in many countries, but some say they come with strings attached.
What we see China and Russia trying to do is, in effect, use small amounts of vaccine sales to extract political concessions and gain political influence. What we want to do is use a mass response to end the pandemic and let that be the legacy of what America is trying to do here.
Biden is expected to shore up a global pandemic response strategy at the G7 summit in June. This group of the world's most advanced economies say they want to lead in pandemic recovery, but they are also the ones criticized as vaccine hoarders.
Wealthy countries could vaccinate 100% of their population, including children, and still have 1.3 billion doses left over to share. And if we look at more realistic numbers, like say 70% of their population, there would be almost 2 billion doses to share. So what we're asking these wealthy countries to do is look at their pipeline of vaccines and start making plans to share doses immediately so that we can be scaling up vaccine access around the world.
The U.S., with decades of success dealing with previous global health crises, has an advantage compared to China and Russia.
Whether it's the Ebola pandemic in West Africa or its contribution to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, I'm very confident that the U.S. is going to step up and play an important leadership role in the global COVID-19 response going forward.
Gail Smith, Biden's point person for global pandemic response, said the U.S. effort could be as ambitious as the Marshall Plan.
In the summer of 1947, Secretary of State Marshall had proposed to aid the nations of Europe.
An American program providing aid to Western Europe after World War II.
The Marshall Plan was indeed about resources. It was also about policies. It was also about markets and dealing with the economic impacts of World War II. And similarly, we've got the same kinds of impacts in this pandemic. I think it is worth thinking that boldly.
Just how bold, the world is waiting to see. Beyond donating doses, the U.S. has pledged $4 billion for COVAX and has supported waiving vaccine patents at the World Trade Organization. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
After more than a year in isolation and fear amid the coronavirus pandemic, many Americans are beginning to be vaccinated and thinking about their hopes for their lives moving forward. Isha Sarai and Vero Balderas spoke with Americans about what they have learned over the past year. In this segment of Alone Together, produced by Jacqueline De Phillips and Isha Sarai, some Americans discuss what they are hoping to see and do after a year of trauma.
I can look at like the pandemic time as being a blessing because I really think that it helped myself and a lot of people that I know to slow down. It just gave me a time to really focus on myself, and then my relationship with my husband, and then the relationship with my daughter and my family.
Despite the circumstances of COVID-19, the one thing that I really appreciate is the time that I've been able to spend with my husband and with our daughter. We would not have had this type of in-depth time together under pre-COVID circumstances.
I know I've gotten to know like my mom and dad a lot more. So I feel like family time has been very important throughout this past year. So I feel like coming out of this, we'll all have a better sense of what family means to us.
When everyone is vaccinated and the infectious rates fall to near zero, I'm going to host a huge barbecue. And I mean going all out. Spend a whole paycheck on it.
Gosh, a vacation with my family and we don't have to worry. We don't have to worry.
We've had some really good things come out of this about slowing down, about spending more time with each other, about finding new activities, new hobbies, new ways to take care of ourselves. And I would like us to not lose that.
I hope to spend a lot less time in the house. I want to see all the baseball I can. I want to eat a hot dog at a stadium.
My future hope would be two things. One is that everybody learns a little bit about letting go of things you can't control. And the other thing would be for people to take this as a learning lesson when it comes to mental health, to not be as judgmental. Everybody's struggling with something, and if we can just be a little kinder and have a little more compassion, mental health wouldn't be as much of a stigma as it is.
I'd say that my life has improved because of COVID-19, only in the fact that it's made me aware of some of my vulnerabilities. I've gone from someone who doesn't believe in anything to someone who passionately sees every day the existence of virtue in our society by little things like, neighbors wearing masks or, communities respecting each other's distances. Those are small sacrifices, but it shows an awareness of both the value of themselves and the world in which they live. When you see that, that has been very comforting to me.
Hopefully this will make us better people and a better nation moving forward. That it'll make us kinder in the long run.
What about you? Do you like water?
Because we've all, as a world, have experienced this great trauma. And how can we be a better society moving forward and make connections that are positive and not try and hurt each other?
My hope is that just enough of us learn lessons so that in the future we can do it better. I hope that the government is learning how to handle a pandemic better, just in case another one comes relatively soon. We had 100 years between the last two major pandemics. If we learn the lessons and we improve it so that next time it's not as bad.
What I hope will come out of this is people will realize that we're all in this together. People can have different opinions about a lot of things, but we just, I think, have lost sight of how much we do have in common. And I hope that will have some impact on us going forward as a nation and as a world population.
Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.